Despite being of Chechen descent, the alleged bombers spent most of their lives in the U.S. after their parents applied for asylum. Both were rare visitors to Russia, but this didn't stop Moscow from raising their alarm over possible terrorist intentions of the older brother. RT's Chechen reports now on why the concerns failed to prevent the Boston tragedy.
As the dust settles in the wake of Boston bombings, the question many ask is why and how could U.S. federal authorities fail to act on the valuable intelligence from 2 years ago, stating that Tamerlan Tsarnaev was radicalized, dangerous, and, quote, prepared to join unspecified underground groups. That's the information the FBI says they received from the Russian government. So 2 years ago, the FBI interviewed the guy and reported back to the Russians that they found nothing suspicious. Since then, they've apparently failed to monitor Tamerlan, because if they have, they probably discovered his YouTube page under his own name, by the way, full of radical content with a playlist titled Terrorists. So you have intelligence from a foreign government, you have the individual openly sharing radical content, and yet somehow he's off the radar. The fear is the reason the FBI dropped the ball on the alleged Russian intelligence is that they treated it as solely Russia's problem. They may have taken Tamerlan's Chechen background into consideration, and they may have ended up looking at this individual from a more political rather than purely law enforcement point of view. This is possible given the history of other requests and pleas that Russia has made in the past with regards to a number of individuals from North Caucasus accused of heinous crimes, particularly those of Chechen background. One example, Ilyas Akhmadov, who was known as the right hand of the internationally recognized Chechen terrorist Shamil Basayev. Just a quick reminder of who Basayev was. He was killed in 2006. Shamil Basayev's record as a Chechen militant leader included, in 1995, he and his gang attacked the city of Budyonovsk and took up to 1,800 residents of that city hostage in a hospital, including 150 children. At least 140 people died as a result of that attack. Also, as he gained power in the region, Shamil Basayev stated his objective to have all Muslim regions in Russia break away from the country. It was basically a call to start a war on all fronts. Among his other heinous acts, there was the school hostage crisis in Beslan in 2004. Terror that Russia will never forget. It left 334 people dead, 186 of them children. So the right hand of this monster who helped stage all this horror, Ilya Akhmadov, arrives in the U.S. somewhere around the year 2000, settles down in Boston, by the way, and receives political asylum, despite Russia's pleas to treat him as a criminal. At the beginning, U.S. federal authorities appealed the Boston court's decision on granting him asylum. Then they withdrew their opposition after a number of political heavyweights in the U.S. tuned in to support the Chechen militant, including former Secretary of State Margaret Albright. So when questioning U.S. federal authorities' reaction to the alleged Russian intel on Tamerlan Tsarnaev, it is important to keep in mind the mindset perpetuated in the U.S. for many years in favor of the militants in Russia and against the Russian government's actions to stop them. New York City's former mayor Rudy Giuliani spoke to the confusion that many Americans had as they learned about the background of these Tsarnaev brothers.
The Chechen revolution against Russia is an Islamic-based revolution. They want an Islamic state in Russia.
Right, Russians, but not inherently anti-American, right?
Anti-Russian.
Right.
Not anti-American. I mean, in fact, here's the odd part of this. If anything, we've been, I'm not going to say sympathetic with them, but we've certainly been critical of Putin and how far he's gone in dealing with Chechen. So if anything, they shouldn't have this anger at the United States.
So given all this, maybe this political mindset has prompted authorities in the U.S. to drop the ball on valuable law enforcement intelligence on Tamerlan Tsarnaev.
James Petrus, professor of sociology at Binghamton University, believes the U.S. is walking on very thin ice when it backs questionable armed factions elsewhere in the world.
The U.S. government is working with extremists today in Libya. They are working with Islamic extremists in Syria. They have been working in other places with Islamic extremists. So on the one hand, they oppose them. On the other hand, they instrumentalize them and hope they can discard them once their adversaries are undermined. And I think this is a very dangerous game that Washington's playing. And in this case, we see the boomerang effect, where the terrorists that once allied with the U.S. turn around and point their guns at underbelly targets. The United States supported the Chechen terrorists when they were working against Russia, when they were putting bombs in schools and metros, etc. They were called freedom fighters.